And now, here's Dr. Mike.
Hi, friends. Thank you so much for joining me today. Dr. Greg Jantz is my guest. He is a specialist in depression and addictive disorders. He says, and I quote, "We tend to deal with symptoms rather than get beneath the surface to see what's happening in the heart and the soul." In his book, Healing Depression for Life, Dr. Jantz explains that depression often has causes related to unforgiveness, addiction, toxic emotions, and stress. He identifies three deadly emotions that contribute to the problem: unresolved anger, guilt, and fear. Dr. Jantz, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's good to be with you. What a timely and important topic we have today.
Isn't that the truth? I was saying that same thing, Greg, to many people today. I said, wow, what, in God's providence, today is the day to have you on, and what a perfect time for this. I'm reading from the back cover of your book. It says, "For decades, the standard treatment for depression hasn't changed. Sufferers typically are prescribed antidepressant medication and talk therapy, period. But as many as 1/3 of depression sufferers aren't helped by standard treatment. Instead, they are left still searching for true and lasting relief," end quote. A 2018 news article you cited in your book, I think it was in the introductory material, states that major depression is on the rise. Some estimates from that article that I read are as high as 33% of an increase in the last 5 to 10 years. And to me, it seems like Americans are losing ground in this battle over depression. You say that is potentially caused by one of the following: overprescription, misuse of medication, relying completely on medication as the solution, one-dimensional treatment answers, short-sighted self-help books, unforgiveness, which we'll talk about, distractions, and addictions. Now, not dealing with depression from a more holistic approach is what I really appreciate about your work, Greg, and this book, which, by the way, folks, Dr. Jantz is the author of 39 books, and I would encourage you to go out to his websites, both the center, and Jared can put those up on the website, but the center, A Place of Hope, that's aplaceofhope.com, but also Dr. Jantz's website, drgregoryjantz.com, and you can find all of his books there, which are available for you. Dr. Jantz, as we begin this conversation today, is this a fair statement that not dealing with depression from a more holistic approach is very likely why so many people struggle to overcome it?
Well, I think anytime we have a singular approach, let's just say, I'm just going to take this pill and hope for the best, and that's all I do, I think we end up being disappointed. We might get some initial relief, but as we know, for long-term success, and that's what we all want, we've got to look at more of all the missing pieces to the puzzle. What's missing here? Yeah. I like to say we're all a 1,000-piece puzzle, and that 1,000-piece puzzle is the emotional side of us. It's obviously the physical and the spiritual. We've got to put it all together. Dig a little deeper.
Yes. Yeah. Well, let's walk our viewers through the gist of your book. In chapter 1, titled "Finding a New Path Forward," you say this, quote, "Depression is real and painful and frightening. Telling people who suffer with depression to just get over it or to just get on with your life, that is absolutely not helpful. It's not a matter of just pulling your bootstraps up and forging ahead, is it?"
Well, one of the things that happens is after a while, we don't know what to do. If you have a loved one, I want to be sensitive to that. And you don't know what to do. You want to help. You want to be a great resource. But what happens is everybody gets very hypersensitive and frustrated. And this is why we've got to look at another approach. You know, by the way, the World Health Organization tells us that depression, and I'm going to add anxiety, Depression is the #1 disability in the world, according to the World Health Organization. Well, with what's going on in the world right now, anxiety might take the top list now, but
Yeah.
anxiety and depression are very significant.
Yeah. And as I read through your book, Greg, one of the things that stuck out to me was there is a huge difference between a feeling of quote unquote the blues
Yeah.
and depression. Chronic symptoms, folks, that last beyond 60 to 90 days might very well be signs of depression. Is that true, Greg?
Well, we're looking at there's different kinds of depression. Maybe a situational depression. We could be in that right now. There's a lot of stress on people. And because of situation, there's stress and there's depression, there's anxiety. But then there's another kind of depression. It's beyond the situation. It's that dark cloud, that oppressive feeling, that apathy, that despair at times that doesn't seem to go away. And it's been 6 months and it's been a year, and you go, wow, what's wrong? What's going on here? And really, the term clinical depression is sometimes used to describe that, but we're seeing more people in that category of if something is not going away and not knowing what to do about that.
Yeah. One of the features, Dr. Jansen, I like about your book is that at the end of each chapter, there is a personal action plan. And I thought that was very, very helpful.
Oh, good.
How important is it, Greg, that people who are in the grips of depression begin a process of self-evaluation?
Well, we got to know, what's the symptoms? What am I experiencing? How long have I had this? How intense is it? And we want to begin to put together a plan, because what happens is people wait too long, and then they have a lot of regrets. Go, I wish I would have. I wish I would have sought help sooner. So I believe we can be preventative, more so. We can keep things from, depression can take you over to that edge.
Yes.
It can be a dangerous edge of despair. And I want to help keep people off of that edge of despair.
Yes. Yeah. Well, let me just give you folks that have joined us today, and thank you, by the way. I'm talking with Dr. Gregory Jantz about his book, Healing Depression for Life. It's a fantastic book. I would recommend it to you if you have a loved one that is dealing with depression. It would certainly provide information and understanding for you as you are working with them. But in this very first chapter, the action plan, let me give you just a sample, folks, of what you'll find in this book. Your personal action plan, when it's dealing with the subject matter of chapter 1, begin the process of self-assessment by taking inventory of your life. Look for habits, lifestyle choices, circumstances, emotions, attitudes, and medical conditions that will need more attention as you move deeper into whole person treatment. Make a word picture of your life. Be honest and courageous. Write down everything that comes to mind. So that's the first point in the personal action plan. The second is educate yourself. And I like this statement, Dr. Jantz, because I say this all the time from the pulpit. Here it is. Don't just take my word for it. I tell people that all the time. You don't have to believe me. There's research available, and I would encourage you to educate yourself on that research.
Yes.
I think that's very good advice, Dr. Jantz. Do people take you up on that?
I hope so.
Because there are ample sources of good information available. So talk to your current caregivers and then pay attention to your thoughts and beliefs. That is the personal action plan for the very first chapter. So the remainder of your book, Greg, is divided into 3 sections: mind, soul, and body. And folks, that's one of the features of this book that you'll enjoy. Those of you who are believers in the Lord Jesus, This is a holistic approach to mental health and well-being, mind, soul, and body. Chapter 2 is titled Sound Asleep, the Curative Power of a Solid Night's Sleep. So here you begin by talking about the importance of sleep. And I know this not from my personal experience, but personal experience with people that I know, that sleep problems plague Americans today. This has really become epidemic. Is that an accurate word to use, Greg?
Well, I think we are having even more so now a sleep epidemic. And what we're meaning by that, and I spent time in sleep research as a researcher and research assistant. And one of the things we know is you've got to spend so much time in those sleep stages, or after a while, you may have an anxious brain, you may have a depressed brain. And so our sleep is critical. But if we have been anxious and we have been depressed, sometimes it's compounding because our sleep isn't good, and the symptoms do tend to get worse. And, it's not uncommon if I'm struggling with anxiety, depression, to wake up 2 or 3 in the morning and you feel that heart pounding and it feels like an anxiety attack during the sleep.
Yeah, and one of the things you mentioned in this chapter is that if you're having trouble sleeping, folks, and I've had this happen a couple of times over the years. For some reason, I'll
Yeah.
just wake up. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. There's no reason. I didn't
Yep.
hear anything. I just woke up, and I'm laying there awake. Now, for me, I'll just start praying because I assume that the Lord woke me up to pray for somebody. So I'll just start praying. Whoever comes to mind, I'll pray for them, and then
Mhm.
eventually I'll go back to sleep. But there's been nights that I've prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed, and I'm still awake. One of the recommendations that you give, and folks, this is good advice for you if you suffer with any type of insomnia, sleep issues, is to get up out of bed and go sit in a chair. Not turn on any lights. Don't get your phone out. Don't turn the television on, but sit down in a chair, relax, calm your mind, and see if you can't begin to be tired again, and then go back to bed. Is that accurate, Greg?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. One of the things that we need to be aware of is having a good pre-sleep routine.
Mm,
Having a routine, we know that blue light from our devices does make a difference. So what I do an hour before bed and doing the same things is important. So routines around sleep, even when you're having a difficult season,
mm,
can be really important.
yes. Yeah, so let me share this with you folks. So have a routine. Greg mentioned that. Have a routine throughout the day, but then as evening approaches, be careful what you eat up in those hours leading up to bedtime. Avoid stimulants when it's bedtime. Um, Develop a regular relaxing bedtime routine. Create a comfortable environment. And here's one that I was guilty of for a lot of years, and I don't anymore, but don't watch TV, study, or read in bed. I used to love to read,
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
and that's one I think a lot of Americans do, Greg.
Yeah. I think we want to be careful how we're stimulating the brain. One of
Hmm.
the things, if you've had a difficult night, I suggest in the morning, even though maybe it's a short night, start your day with 3 gratitudes. Create
Mm.
a gratitude journal, and every day, just write 3 things down. Again, even if you've had a difficult night, how we start our day is important. And let's begin with some gratitudes, no matter how simple they are. My wife has been doing this for years, and she's at 20,000 some. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Yeah, that is amazing. Well, chapter 3 hits home for Well, a large percentage of Americans. Chapter 3, folks, deals with technology, your devices, your depression, how overuse of technology erodes mental health. Here's a truth from this chapter. Oh man, when I read, in fact, I was reading this, and when I read it, I just stopped and I said, Kathy's my wife. I said, Kathy, listen to this, because I have a habit of doing that when I'm reading books and
Right, right.
something really hits me. I stop and I have to share it. So here it is. Here's the quote from your book. First, some good news. Drug, alcohol, and tobacco use among adolescents in the United States has steadily fallen since the 1990s. The bad news? Researchers suspect one reason for that is kids are increasingly substituting technology for these substances as their drug of choice. One specialist went so far as to describe the smartphone as digital heroin for millennials. Wow. Now, there is a quote. Greg, what are some of the many troubling aspects of the use of technology, especially in the overuse of technology?
Well, we know that a growing and developing brain, and if it gets overstimulated, let's say technology, the average age to exposure to internet pornography is about age 9. And so we start exposing individuals to this at such a young age. Time goes along, things intensify. As time goes along, more and more use. So the digital world, unmonitored, for that developing brain, and I'm particularly concerned our 12 to 17-year-olds, and just the intensity of that over time, it creates what we call craving brain. That craving brain wants more and more and more. Craving brain is also very anxious and oftentimes a very depressed brain. So we need to look at the digital world, and right now there's a lot of just, I'll call it viral misinformation. And so this misinformation is such that we need to be careful about where we're spending and what we're allowing. We know that overuse of technology also kind of creates what we'll call as a low impulse control. By that, a low impulse control means I'm just used to everything being one click away, and one click away can mean I just want everything instantly. So I develop what I call low impulse control. So some things to be aware of.
Yes, yes. It also, ironically, it's categorized under a very broad umbrella, social media, but it actually really creates isolation. People are spending time on their devices, and they're not spending time with other people. I've seen this. I even actually wrote an article about this, Greg, is that people, I notice it when I go to restaurants, and people will be sitting together at a table and they'll all be on their phones. They're not interacting with one another.
Right.
And they're spending time on their phones, and they'll actually text one another on their phone instead of looking up from the phone and actually speaking to the person.
Yeah, we developed something called partial attention, which means if you've ever been out with somebody, they are texting away and they look at you and they go, "What did you say?" Because they're partially attentive, and this creates just a general kind of almost a devaluing of the relationship. So we want to have a rule: when you're with somebody, be fully with them. Yeah, it's different if you want to have show them something, or online or something, that's okay, but give your full attention. Don't give partial attention. It just says a great deal if I can give you my eye contact and give you my presence.
Yes, yeah, and I applaud my wife Kathy, because that is her mantra when we go. Set the phones down, preferably face down, so you're not even seeing if something pops up on your screen. one of the phenomena that I've noticed as a pastor, because I hear it a lot from people, is and you call it in your book virtual conflict. We used to call it bullying. I guess maybe you
Yep.
could call it cyberbullying.
Yep.
But there are technology seems to have removed any safe checks in our mind or in our spirit. We just say things or put
Right.
things out there without giving them a lot of thought about how they're going to impact the person that we're talking to. And in fact, sometimes people just go way overboard, don't they, with threats and all sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. As cyberbullying, people will say and do things online that they won't necessarily do in person.
Yeah.
So yes, you're right.
Yeah.
There's that online courage that a person
Yes.
has that they
Yes.
won't do in person.
That's right. Yeah. You also discuss in this section the difficulty people have in disconnecting from their their electronic devices, and you use the acronym FOMO, FOMO, which is fear of missing out. Now, I have to tell you, Greg, that made me laugh out loud, but it's true. People are so concerned they're going to miss a conversation, aren't they?
You know, and we've dealt with youth who sleep with their devices under their pillow, and
Mm,
they have disruptive
yeah.
sleep. And so we know that this whole I have to be connected in order to feel like I'm okay. For our youth, a device is like an extra arm. And we do see what we'll call in our work here, because we work with folks who come from all over the country to be helped for depression and anxiety. We see folks who end up um, having what we'll call digital anxiety. They have to check in initially, anything with a screen on it, and we lock it away. And by the third day, a good percentage have sweaty palms, heart rate goes up. They're going through some digital detox, so to speak.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So,
You-
yeah,
Yeah, you mentioned the center. Let's before we go any further, let's talk about that a little bit. Please tell us about the center and your work there, and then after
sure.
that, Kathy, we're going to we're going to take a break for the sponsors, and then we're going to look to take questions that Dr. Jantz can answer as well as in the queue. So, Greg, would you tell us about the center and the work that you do there?
Sure. The center, we're celebrating 36 years. It's called the Center, a Place of Hope.
Yeah.
And what the center is it's a whole person facility. People come in. We build teams. So we do everything from nutrition to, of course, the counseling to the medical piece. We're putting together all the pieces of the whole person. And you have a team that is your team that works through the plan, or we want to get to the core issues that are creating depression or anxiety. And so it's a unique process. We use natural health care. I think I mentioned nutrition. So we have been voted in the top 10 places to get help for depression. And I think it's really because of the whole person model.
Yes, and the center is located where?
We're north of Seattle on a
Okay.
beautiful, I'm looking out my window, a beautiful waterfront community called Edmonds.
Okay. And folks, if you or someone you know would like more information about the center, a place of hope, then the telephone number is 888-771-5166. Again, 888-771-5166. And if you go to the website, aplaceofhope.com, it'll tell you all about the center. There are pages there that you can get help now if you click on that button, and all sorts of information there.
Yes.
So if you or someone you know And again, this is such a timely conversation we're having today
Mhm.
with Dr. Jantz because of everything that's going on in our nation. Many
Yes.
many people are finding themselves very anxious about a number of things. So we're going to take a break here to hear a word from our sponsors. Please stay with us, and if you've joined us on social media and there is a chat functionality, please type your question there. We have people that are watching those platforms, and they'll get the question to us, and Dr. Jantz will
Good.
do his best
You
to
bet.
answer that question. So we'll be right back, folks, after this word from our sponsors.
Dr. Mike is sponsored by LifeVantage. Take charge of your health by effectively reducing oxidative stress and promoting mitochondria function with Protandim NRF1 and NRF2 synergizers. www.mica68.lifevantage.com. Works LLC. Custom-made concealed carry holsters, mag carriers, and knife carriers. www.works.com. Altha Technology provides website hosting, live video streaming, and solutions for all your new media needs. www.althatech.com. The Transforming Word Ministries, a multimedia ministry outreach of Dr. Mike Spalding. Contact us today at www.thetransformingword.com. Go Therefore Conferences, www.gothereforeconference.com, promoting the best cutting-edge Christian content to equip and encourage the body of Jesus Christ.
Hi, folks. Thank you for sticking with us. I am talking with Dr. Gregory Jantz. His book, Healing Depression for Life. It's available at Dr. Jantz's website, drgregoryjantz.com. You can go there and get the book. And by the way, I was looking at the site recently, and there are a lot of good books. So if this one doesn't sound like it's something you need, there's something out there for you or someone you know. I am confident of that. So, Kathy, that you said there were a few questions. Let's take those one at a time now.
Okay. So, Dr. Jantz, the first question is from John, and he wants to know if you have plans in your book to break away from certain depression disorders, kind of a game plan, action plan.
Yes. And we also have a companion, we haven't mentioned it, but a companion workbook that goes with this book so that you're actively working on this. And we really do believe that you've got to have a plan. You know, hope comes when we have a plan. So,
yes.
And I do want to say, as great as I believe the book and the workbook is, there's times where we need somebody else to come alongside us and to really help us, because we want to see, long-term results.
Yes.
So yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. The second question on Facebook is from Sherry. She would like to know, how do you help someone accept counseling and not self-medicate when the person thinks they can control depression on their own?
Yeah, one of the things, and sometimes there's the hope and belief I can control all this on my own, and people almost begin to live with this as though it's the normal. I started to say new normal, but if you've been struggling a long time, it's like, well, this is just who I am, and this is what's normal. But the reality is, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not what's normal. And so I believe we've got so often, of course, in our society and culture, we just want to have one single answer: do this, take this magic pill, and you'll be okay. And the reality is, you won't be. And we've got to be willing to also pray for wisdom. I think praying for wisdom, asking God to show me, what do I need to know? What missing pieces to the puzzle are there?
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. I have another question on Facebook. Angel is asking if you deal with PTSD issues, or if you have a book or something, any articles related to that.
Yes, post-traumatic stress disorder is definitely, it's a it's one of the depressions and it's one of the anxieties. And I just want to clarify, we can have the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder from any kind of trauma, child or adult, profound loss, abuse of any kind. Sometimes we think of trauma being just maybe a vet, but it comes in different forms. And I want to mention that we do cover some of that in the book, Healing Depression for Life. But it is something that we work with here on a daily basis.
Thank you. That's all I see, Mike, on Facebook, but I think Denny has a question.
Okay. All right. Denny?
Okay, one quick question that may be very simple. I've dealt with a lot of people with depression, doctor, and what I have found, I had one lady that came to our church and she was clinically depressed on medication. I spent a year with her, praying with her, and what I have found that, and you can tell me if I'm all wet, but I have found that a lot of depression is basically an extreme selfishness, if I may use that. And by me getting them to do things for other people on a positive thing, and she went 8 years totally off of medication and totally healthy after that. And it's just it was just getting her off of her mind on her problems. Is that all wet? It worked with her. I'll put it that way.
Well, I think there's different kinds of depression.
Okay.
And there's mild forms and different reasons for depression. Maybe there's a medical reason. A person has a thyroid that's not working and they're experiencing some significant depression. I could go try to help as many people as I could, but I'll still have that faulty thyroid. So
Right.
I think it's just times we know that when we recover, we always want to be of service to others.
Yeah. Any other questions in the queue?
Mike, I have another question from Facebook.
Okay, please.
Okay, Dr. Jantz, I have Kathy on here. She says, my 13-year-old daughter has just recently been taken off of Prozac, January the 3rd, for depression and anxiety. She was doing well, but with this pandemic, she's starting to feel depressed and anxious again. How can I help? She sees her psychologist on Wednesday.
Oh, well, good. Well, did you say 13 years old?
Yes.
Wow. Well, that's very young, seems to me, to be on a antidepressant. That's a little bit unusual, but I don't know everything that's going on as well. I know that one of the things that we need to address with our kids right now is this panic and is this anxiety. And I think a lot of times kids have questions, and we need to allow them to ask the questions. It's so often we say, here's what you have to do. And we're kind of giving them a lecture versus listening and going, tell me what you know about what's going on, and tell me what your concerns are, to really engage them and let them talk about it. Because kids will, well, first of all, they'll absorb our anxieties. They'll certainly want to, sometimes comfort us. So let's always start from the place of understanding where they're at before we overwhelm them with information. I hope you have a great psychologist and a great person to help. There are some good strategies that we can use with kids and anxiety, but a lot of this is developmentally. Where are they? And I'm interested in 13-year-old. What's going on that there's so much depression? It's just that seems so young.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mike, I see a couple of them in the queue.
Yeah. So, Dr. Jan, someone wants to know how to break the habit of being on the phone all the time.
Yeah.
Can I refer them to, well, I'll let you answer, but I want to refer them to your personal action plan in this chapter, because it gives 5 great things that people can do.
Sure.
So,
Go, please do.
okay. So the personal action plan for that, because this question is one that I was expecting to be asked because I think that is an issue. So this is what Dr. Jantz writes in his book on this chapter dealing with your devices and their relationship to your depression. Number one, here are 5 ways that you can start addressing the issue that was raised there. Keep an online log to track your digital use for 1 or 2 weeks. So what's the point in that? Well, it'll reveal exactly how much time you do spend. Because I think, and Dr. Jantz, you can correct me if this is not right. I think that people lose track of how much time they spend on devices, and they really don't know that they spend as much time as they do. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, and our devices now can tell us how much time we're spending.
Oh.
I think it's sometimes it's like any other addiction. And I use the word addiction. We always underestimate it. You ask a guy who's struggling with alcohol, how many beers you have? Well, I just had 1. And in reality, they had 6.
Yeah.
So how much time have you spent online? Well, not that much. So we tend to underestimate it.
Yeah, that's right. So that's point number 1. Point number 2, also track your interaction with other technology. So it isn't just about your mobile device, your smartphone, because with the internet, you can be doing all kinds of things in many different ways, whether it's television, video games, movies, whatever. So it gets out of control in a hurry. So the third point then, folks, from Dr. Jantz's book, and again, I'm talking to Dr. Gregory Jantz, Healing Depression for Life. We are in the chapter on devices and depression. The third one is this, guys: put yourself on a tech diet. Put yourself on a tech diet. And I know, because I've seen some of you saying, hey, I am taking a break from Facebook. I'll be back in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's probably a good thing, isn't it?
Well, have a day a week that you do a technology detox.
There you go.
Maybe it's Sunday. Go, okay, today we're just going to set these aside. We're really going to be with one another. I mean, there's different ways of doing this. And, can you take a break without having a lot of symptoms of anxiety?
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Commit to a periodic digital detox.
Yeah.
Yeah. Curtail social media engagement. That's the 5th one. Checking Facebook, Instagram, and other sites every other day or less frequently should suffice. It doesn't need to be done daily or several times a day, I think, is the point.
Right.
Now, Dr. Jantz, there's another question, and I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you the question anyway, because I've already read in your book, so I know what you're going to say. Here's the question: should a person put their phone in another room overnight?
Well, I think yes, and it's what I do.
Yeah.
And you go, well, I use it for my alarm. That's okay. I put mine out of the bedroom, and boy, I can hear my alarm because those can get loud. Purposely move it away from you, and put it in a different room. Try that. Don't be sleeping with it. Don't be having it next to the nightstand and going off all night. Give yourself, it's a little detox there, a little digital detox. Give yourself a little break.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Very good. Any other questions from anybody on social media, Kathy?
I'm not seeing anything, Mike.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone that's joined us in the huddle today? You have to unmute yourself and ask. Okay. Well, then we're going to move on. Greg, in the book, we're at chapter 4. You're talking about issues dealing with stress and chronic stress. And you mentioned that stress triggers depression. So what are some steps people can take to better manage their stress levels?
Well, chronic stress can lead us to even physical inflammation and physical disease. So we got to look and go, what chronic stress? That's something that's been with me now for 6 months, a year. That's chronic stress.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do I need to do to enhance my self-care? What does it really mean to care for myself in a way that is I don't mean greedy or selfish. Self-care so that I'm really taking care of myself spiritually. What do I need to do to renew my mind? What am I doing for my physical body? So if I improve my self-care, I'm going to be a much better resource and sensitive to the needs of others. So, that's a couple thoughts around that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the personal action plan for this chapter, folks, I think is very good. Reducing the stress in your life is not a one-time action, but a series of lifestyle choices and intentional decisions. That's it right there, isn't it? That's the key.
It is.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. It's
That's
not
right.
something you figure out once, but an attitude and mindset to be embraced.
Mhm.
We talk about that within the context of a lot of different things. It's a mindset.
It is.
So, yeah. So identify your stressors, folks. Then create an action plan to incorporate some of the strategies that Dr. Jantz talks about in this chapter. So moving on then to chapter 5, a hard look at hard issues, uncovering hidden addictions. Now, this chapter was very good. I enjoyed the whole book, Greg, but this chapter was good because you're dealing with uncovering hidden addictions, and that can be tricky. You give a working definition of addiction as this: continued compulsive substance use or behavior despite harmful consequences.
Yeah.
We can convince ourselves that everything's fine, can't we?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Everything is fine. I'm just fine. Well, you may not be, and it may not be. We live in denial, and we can be, that's part of what keeps an addiction going.
Yeah.
Is really denying it or diminishing what's really going on. We like to deflect and not look at the reality. And those are hard issues. If you're struggling with depression or anxiety, we look for a way to self-medicate, and we would like to, feel differently. So we can turn to substances to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something we can see clearly in other people, but it's
right.
hard for us to identify, or maybe a better word is admit.
Yep.
That we have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how is addiction, or how are addictions linked to depression then, Dr. Jantz?
Addictions can, like alcohol, it's a central nervous system depressant. So there's a physiological component to most of addictions. We know that cannabis, marijuana, can create really a depressed brain, if you will. The science is good with that. So we do want to look at that and go, okay, the science is good on that, and what do we need to do to move away from addiction and deal with the real issue?
Yeah. Kathy, I see there's another question. Let me finish this portion with Dr. Jantz, and then we'll take that question. On pages 70 and 71 of your book, you identify 4 things that people can do to confront their addiction so that they can heal from depression. Here are the steps, folks. I'll just give these to you. You need to ask yourself this question: am I addicted?
Yeah.
If your continued behavior clearly has resulted in negative outcomes in your life and you keep doing it anyway, then there is no other conclusion, folks. You are addicted. Facing that is the only way you'll find the strength to do what must be done to be free of that addiction. So if you still believe you can stop anytime you want, ask yourself, why haven't I?
Right.
Wow. Second point, what need is this behavior meeting? Ask yourself, what do I feel before and after I indulge in this behavior? And what clues are in those feelings that help me better understand my unmet needs? Boy, this is digging deep into the real you. Number 3, what am I avoiding with this behavior? Wow. A person who routinely drinks to excess may be running from past traumas or current conflicts they'd rather not face. The distraction of the internet may be a convenient way to avoid admitting you are not happy in your job or relationship and to sidestep your fear of change. However you answer this question, it is valuable information because it marks the spot where you must dig to unearth more pieces to the puzzle of lasting healing. And then finally, the fourth point, and this is all under confronting addiction in Dr. Jantz's book, Healing Depression for Life.
Yep.
So the fourth point is this, folks. How can I meet this need differently? Once you know what longing you are trying to fulfill, it's easier to see that there are other healthier ways to get there. If pornography is masking the fact that you feel lonely and unlovable, and if what you truly need is genuine human connection, then turning off the computer is one step in a campaign to put yourself in a position to meet real people. That may take time, and it may involve the work of self-improvement, but it is a positive path with real potential to meet your need in a way that continued addiction never will. This book, folks, is chock full of very important, very critical information. If you or someone you know is suffering from depression, I encourage you to get the book. You can go to drgregorygentz.com, order it from the website there. It's probably on Amazon and all of those places as well. But another question from social media. Kathy, go ahead.
I do. I have a couple, Mike. I have from Barbara. She's wanting to know, what is a good way to handle depression that comes from the death of a loved one?
Thank you so much for that question. That's really about grief and loss. And grief and loss is a depression, or can be, that takes some time. And I always think of not doing this alone. We tend, particularly during grief and loss, to isolate a lot, and we disconnect. And we've got to have those three people in our life that are wonderful truth tellers who are trustworthy, that are going to be walking with us. But there's a season of grief that we turn and we begin to develop a sensitivity and a caring towards others. And so many folks who have gone through this loss of loved one end up being such a help and ministry to others. So there's a pain there, though, that is unless a person's been through it, it's difficult to describe, and it's difficult to understand, because it's a different kind of that deep grief is a different kind of depression, and I just want to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Dr. Jantz, is this current book available on Kindle for their tablets by any chance? Can they download this on Amazon?
I believe so.
Okay, Barbara, I hope you heard that. Also, another question from Kathy, whose 13-year-old was taken off of Prozac. She's wanting to know, is family history a factor? Because she says her mother had schizophrenia and a chemical imbalance. So does family history play a part?
Family history can certainly play a part, and sometimes we see patterns of depression in families. Sometimes it's kind of a learned behavior. Other times, a pattern of depression seems to be some other influence. But yes, we do see it or a tendency in that in families.
Thank you. That's all I got, Mike.
That's it. Okay. All right. Well, Dr. Jantz, chapter 6 begins part 2 of your book, which looks at the soul. Here you're dealing with the 3 deadly emotions. Now, this is going to really be, well, in the wheelhouse of most people, I would imagine. Those 3 deadly emotions: anger, guilt, and fear. You describe these emotions as spiritual toxins that create physical and emotional issues. Could you please explain that in a little more detail, Greg? Anger, guilt, fear, spiritual toxins.
Yeah, well, anger, another word for anger could be hurt, Another word for anger might be resentment.
Mm,
So anger has different forms.
yeah.
And we know that if we leave anger unaddressed in our life, that can turn into resentments, and that's a poison. That's it poisons everything. I like to think of the anger, fear, and guilt as the three toxic emotions. And what we mean by that, a toxic emotion is one that's really repoisoning us. Fear, the second one is anxiety. There's worry. I think worry can fit into that. So we see a lot of fear right now. There's a true fear that is legitimate in that it's a response to a threat. But then there's fears that we learn. We learned how to worry. That's a big one. Guilt is my third deadly emotion. It's true guilt, which means I messed up and I need to seek forgiveness. And then there's probably a false guilt that's more of a shame that I just feel like I don't have value or I'm defective. Something's wrong with me.
Yeah. There's good news, folks. Chapter 7, Dr. Jantz discusses the antidote to toxic emotions. This is a key chapter in the book. It discusses forgiveness. You give an illustration, Greg, in the book of the racehorse Seabiscuit and its jockey Red Collared, and
Yeah.
I thought that was a great way to paint a word picture that really resonates with people. So this idea of forgiveness, it is crucial for our well-being, isn't it?
And sometimes we don't realize that a lack of forgiveness or even that we had a lack of forgiveness
Mm,
could be something that's poisoning us. Maybe a lack of forgiveness is preventing us to successfully deal with anger, fear, or guilt.
yes.
I always mention forgiveness or lack of it because it's something that comes up often in our work. And I don't mean it's the only reason for depression, but it's something we need to do a heart check with and see, is this a potential factor in my life?
Yes. Yeah. So, folks, forgiveness it's a tough thing to do. Forgiveness well, what is forgiveness not? Let's answer that question, because when I talk to people about this as a pastor, Greg, I always get, but I can't. They did this. I can't forget this. I can't forgive that.
Right.
You talk about it in your book. There are things that forgiveness is not. So
Well, forgiveness is not forgetting.
yeah,
If you've been traumatized and hurt, you're always going to remember that. You're not going to forget it. But I
yeah,
think the important part is it's releasing the power or the
yeah,
destructive power that has in your life.
yes,
Forgiveness is not about necessarily trusting the person who injured you. You don't have to be in relationship necessarily with that person. Sometimes we think, I just have to forgive and I'm going to keep being abused. No, that's not forgiveness. So those are a couple
yeah,
thoughts
yeah,
around that.
yeah. Now the personal action plan, folks, for this chapter is very good as well, and I want to mention these points. So, in relation to forgiveness, here's how to make forgiveness a part of your recovery. And this is all within a context of depression, remember. Make a clear choice. That's first. If you've harbored resentment and a desire for revenge against someone for a long time, your mind will resist your attempts to reverse direction and forgive. To signal that you are serious about getting free, create a contract with yourself. In your journal, write, I hereby pledge to forgive for the following offenses for the following reasons.
Yeah.
Put it down. What does that do, Greg, when people write things down?
Well, it helps make it real. You write it down, and I got to look at it. It says the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
And writing it down also is a form, something about writing it and put it in your, inking it with your own hand, which really does have a significant engagement with the brain. A little different than keyboarding. So write it down.
Yeah. Practice empathy. Not everyone who hurts you is a monster.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah. Employ gratitude.
Mhm.
Now that well, I put it this way: count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God has done. Just remember in your life all the good and put the bad in its
Yes.
proper context.
Yep.
And then the fourth point, dwell in the present. That's huge, isn't it?
Oh, living in the present is so important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other piece that's important is it's so easy to slide back and go, oh, but they hurt me, or they keep sliding back. I want you to have that gratitude for each day as well.
Yes. Yeah. Amen. And then the fifth point, ask God for help.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Forgiveness doesn't come naturally to us in the wake of a painful trauma or offense. We must learn how to do it. Yes. Amen. Amen. Okay. Well, we've got just a couple of minutes. We are not going to get through the book. So, folks, I would encourage you to get the book, Healing Depression for Life. Healing Depression for Life. You can go to drgregorygents.com, the website. You can get it there. Part 3, chapter 8. Nope, let's go to chapter 8. Chapter 8 is strength through soul care. So here you discuss spiritual practices. You list faith, talking with God, and that's not necessarily praying, and listening to God among the many priorities. So sharing life with other encouragers and people of faith is very important. That was my takeaway from this chapter, Greg.
Yeah. You know, we work with folks who come to us and 6 months pass after they've been here. We follow up with them. Year passes, we follow up with them. And they'll say things like, you know, I really learned a whole lot there at the Center of Place of Hope. But you know what? It's my faith that really kept me going. It's my faith that has really seen me through. And so I want to mention that today, that we see that's a key for that long-term recovery.
Yeah.
And it's so good to just be able to talk about these things now, because we're living in a season of the most depression that we've ever seen, and anxiety. And I really want folks to know, and it's just because 36 years of working in this area, I do see healing and recovery, and I do want folks to know there is hope.
Yes. Amen. And that is very timely for today. So the personal action plan for this chapter, folks, ask for divine help. As Jesus told his followers, everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be open. Listen, the Father does not want to see you struggling in this area. He wants to bring healing, wholeness, well-being to you. Make use of your faith and your relationship with the Father through Christ. Seek assistance and support from others. If you've got persistent questions about the value and practice of faith, rest assured you're not the first one to ask them. Boy, that's a true statement.
Isn't it?
There are no original questions anymore, I don't imagine, Greg. They've all been asked, so you're not foolish for asking it.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, Pastor Mike, I have a question real quick.
Yes, go ahead, David.
Dr. Jans, and I was following Hole in My Heart Ministries, and I couldn't understand, and I'm sorry I missed half the show because I was running late, but I couldn't understand if you would classify homosexuality as an addiction or as something else.
As an addiction. Homosexuality is an addiction. I don't think that's normally how we see that. I think we're going to say that sexual addiction is something that we see that can come in many different forms. I know that, and that's something that we work with.
Yes. So, folks, the center And you can go to the website there. Jared has it up on the screen. The center, A Place of Hope,
Yeah.
aplaceofhope.com for help. 888-771-5166. You can go to Dr. Jantz's website, drgregorykjantz.com, order the book. We've been talking about healing depression for life. Dr. Jantz, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. And there's hope. Let's make today the day of decision, that we decide to do something, get some new information, but do something.
Amen, brother. Amen. Do something.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. Well, folks, thank you for joining us today. Contact Dr. Jantz if you have any questions whatsoever.
Yeah.
Let him know that you appreciated his advice and his input on the show today. God bless you, folks. We will see you next time. And remember, renewing our mind is not an option. God bless you.